So, is Beastars any good? Does it live up to the hype? So Beastars primarily focuses on a lot of character development in the show, and it thrives on that. This anime doesn't really have a lot of action scenes, so if you're expecting to watch a show where animals tear each other apart, you won't be getting that with this show. So, let's get on to the characters, and a brief summary of the plot. We have Legoshi, the gray wolf, Louis, the red deer, and Haru, who is a Netherland white dwarf rabbit. There are also other main characters in the show, but for the sake of the review, I'm only going to be focusing on the main three, just because we've seen them develop the most throughout the show. So Beastars really sets the tone of the show in episode 1, where a fellow alpaca gets murdered by one of his carnivore students. What makes this murder so shocking is that it happened on school grounds. Tem, the alpaca who was murdered, was also a part of the drama club. Now, the drama club is essential on this school campus because it's where herbivores and carnivores can be seen working together. The drama students are very clearly panicked by this and separate themselves from the carnivores throughout drama practice. Now, this is where Legoshi stands out from the crowd, because he is a huge gray wolf, and it wouldn't be really surprising if he murdered someone like this. One of the herbivores is even freaked out because she is also an alpaca, and she worries for her life because Legoshi won't stop staring at her during drama practice. However, Legoshi is just socially awkward, and the only reason why he was staring at the female alpaca was to give her a love note that Tim had left for her. So Legoshi decides to go to a little memorial that was held in the school for Tem, and this is where we're introduced to Louis, and Louis is, he's something. And within seconds of meeting each other, we can already sense an interesting dynamic between the two characters. Legoshi is already given off a soft-spoken and laid-back tone, while Louis is more intense and straightforward with his intentions. Shortly after meeting, Louis asks Legoshi a favor. Louis informs Legoshi that Tim has been recast and wants to help the actor specifically at night to get his lines through. And Legoshi just has to stand guard to make sure that no one invades their practice. As Legoshi is standing guard, he does hear some rustling from afar. And of course, this is where we're introduced to our next character, Haru. Legoshi lets his primal instincts kick in, and he chases and almost kills Haru. But, for whatever reason, Legoshi snaps back to normal and lets the rabbit go. Now mind you, this was all in episode 1. So I'm going to try and discuss the rest of the show without giving away too many spoilers for those who haven't seen it yet. So what did I honestly think of the show? First, let's start off with the art. So to be quite frank, I'm not a huge fan of 3D animation. There is a couple exceptions to the rule that I'm willing to look past, such as full-length animated features, just because I know the technology that goes into those films are very well executed. I don't even mind if cartoons or anime need to use 3D animation for one particular scene in the show, like if they need to create like a realistic robot or a cool-looking mech, then I can understand adding the aesthetic of 3D animation. But to me, personally, 3D animation kinda can be goofy and poorly done at times. But honestly, with Beastars, the 3D animation just feels natural. It makes the animals feel more realistic as well. I'm not one to really discuss animation because, trust me, I don't know the first things about animation. But one thing I really enjoyed, a little subtle thing they added in the characters' animations, was depending on their movements, you could really determine what their characters were like. For example, like Louis would always, whenever he would like walk in his animations, he always stood upright to me and always had this confident strut, whereas Legoshi was more like hunched over and his like motions were more awkward, like with him covering his face or like hiding his tail. Like that tells you like what their characters are, and I found that really interesting to me. And before I forget, the voice acting. Now, in English dubbed anime, the voice acting is a very crucial part to the anime. Because a lot of people already have this fixated, voice in their head from the Japanese dub that people just want it to be similar. I personally love English dubs just because I like different approaches. So the voice actors for this show, so we got Jonah Scott as Legoshi, we got Griffin Poatu as Louis, and we got Laura Jill Miller as Haru. And honestly, I looked up these voice actors, and they just all blew me away. I mean, the talent they have, it's like they almost immerse themselves into their characters. Like Griffin Powatu, for example, I'm surprised he was able to pull off a voice like this, just because he has like a higher pitched voice to a degree. And how he was able to voice Louis is just perfect. It fit him so well. Same thing with Jonah Scott with Legoshi. You know, with Legoshi, you picture like a more higher pitched voice, sort of like what Griffin Powatu has, for this awkward, you know, soft-spoken, gentle character. But they went with a deeper, and I hate to say this, but sultry voice for Legoshi, and it fits him so well. It's so funny how, you know, like I said, they were able to immerse themselves into the character. They knew exactly what their characters were. The same thing with Laura's performance with Haru. I mean, she almost had like this nerdy, you know, pitched voice, but at the same time, the voice was mature, which fits Haru's character so well. I know I'm describing these so horribly, but I fell in love with the voice actors. I thought they did an amazing job. And for them to just, I'm not sure about Laura, but for Griffin and Jonah to just be starting out it seems like in the voice acting community, they are excellent. 10 out of 10 on the voice acting. So, my honest opinion on the show overall. So, honestly, and I'm sure people are going to roast me in the comments for this, but honestly, I viewed this show as a more mature version of Zootopia. Now, I'm only comparing it to Zootopia just because it has similar themes, but they were executed quite differently. I'm not comparing it because this is a show that has animals in it. I'm comparing it to the sense of the herbivore and carnivore debate. So what do I mean by the carnivore and herbivore debate? And what I'm essentially saying with this is that Beastars has this political undertone in place. Like, there's already a segregation between herbivore and, you know, carnivore. And I mean, we can apply that to society today to some standard. I mean, in an anime, it's portrayed as these, you know, the carnivores are the ones that are murdering us. They're the monsters. They're the true beasts of our society. And the way they executed this was just amazing, because on one hand, you have the carnivores who go to extreme lengths to curb, like, their desire for meat. And, I mean, in one scene, not to spoil too much, there's, you know, Legoshi and a couple of the drama club people, they end up going to this black market where essentially carnivores go there to eat meat, so they're not tempted to eat students on campus. Whereas we have Legoshi, who doesn't want to be perceived as that. He doesn't want to be the stereotypical predator who, you know, goes after innocent herbivores. He wants to be the peacemaker. He wants to show that because he's a carnivore, he's not this horrid beast, but unfortunately, that's just how the herbivores perceive most carnivores. And honestly, once again, I'm sorry, I don't mean to give too much away, but the most intriguing thing for me to watch with this show was Haru and Legoshi's relationship. Haru knows that, you know, pursuing a relationship with Legoshi is almost like a forbidden thing. She mentions throughout the show that she's afraid of Legoshi, you know, harming her in any sort of way or killing her. But she's also conflicted because she sees Legoshi as this gentle and soft-spoken creature, and, you know, and Legoshi, on the other hand, as much as they started off negatively, where Legoshi initially attacks her in hopes of killing her because his predator instincts kicked in, you know, he forces himself to suppress those instincts, and he wants to get to know Haru. He genuinely cares for her, and he's trying so hard to prove that he's more than just a predator. And to me, this was very well done. It kept me going through the show. So, once again, should you tune in? Honestly, At first glance, this anime might turn people away just because of the 3D animation. It's a Netflix anime, and it deals with anthropomorphic animals, which I know, those are 3 things that people don't genuinely love to tune into. But honestly, I'm super excited for season 2. I'm glad I watched this anime. In my opinion, it had a really, really slow start. But it got a little intense by episode, I want to say 8 or 9. That's when the characters shine and show their true personalities, and that's when you essentially love the show. It's only 12 episodes, so me saying that episode 8 and 9 really gets you into the show, I know is like a stretch for people, but promise me, stay tuned in. It's worth the watch for sure. And once again, guys, I'm just your typical mouse in your dusty old forgotten attic who likes to watch and review things. Stay tuned for next time.